in New Orleans. We are Radio NOLA HIV with programming. That's right, programming dedicated to human rights and social justice. WHIVFM.org. We honor independent voices. We are not a radio station with a mission. No, we are a mission with a radio station that is to end all wars. Welcome to NoiseFilter. Sitting across the digital divide is my friend and yours. Say hello, Doc Griggs.
Hello, Doc Griggs.
Although you look like some blinders right now. I don't know, you look like kind of like the image. It's kind of like a cool old, like, remember Outer Limits? Did you ever watch Outer Limits?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Kind of like a scarier version of Twilight Zone, right? They were an hour.
Yeah, it was fun, actually. Fun to watch.
Yeah, they were so good. My name is Mark Allen Dery. I'm an infectious disease doctor here in New Orleans. Doc Griggs is a community medicine specialist also in New Orleans. The health representative for the state. What is that title? I forget.
I'm the health and wellness ambassador for the state of Louisiana. There's a Louisiana Senate resolution, and the health and wellness ambassador for the city of New Orleans by city council resolution.
Well, that's also Eric Griggs, and we appreciate you guys as you are streaming in. This is a live Facebook show, NoiseFilter, where Doc Griggs and I kind of recap the week's news, if you will, on COVID, while also looking at data. Today, built out my first slide deck, so I hope I have enough material to last us an hour, but I don't know. We shall see. And I leaned real heavy on the emails that I get from somebody named Caitlin. She's goes by your local epidemiologist, and we'll go over some of her work in just a moment. She really does amazing work. With that said, Doc Griggs, anything right now you are off screen, but you will be on screen in just a moment. Is that correct?
Yes, very shortly.
Very shortly. All right, because I don't think I can keep doing this Outer Limits thing by myself. So
Twilight Zone.
We love answering your questions. If you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat here. Hey, Katie, we did get all your messages today. Thank you so much for reaching out to us, and let's definitely chat. If you want to jump on and let us know what's happening in the UK, let me know, and I will be happy to send you an email for a link. Yes, Outer Limits was a great show. All right, that being said, Eric, one last announcement. NoiseFilter will be live on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7 Central Standard Time. We're doing it once a week at this point, and then it'll be broadcasting again on WHIV on Fridays at 11 a.m. If you're listening on WHIV, thank you guys. This show was recorded 2 days prior to you listening to it now. That being said, Eric, anything on your mind?
No, just Flurona, Cameroon, Omicron, Tigers, Bears. Oh my!
So let's start with that. Talk to us about Flurona. I know you sent an article. I meant to put it in, but I didn't get a chance to do it.
Yeah, Flurona is what we're concerned about. Is there's the potential of a twindemic. I think we've been saying it before. There's no law of nature, or man or humankind that you can only be infected with one virus at a time. What's happening is the first one to pop up was an unvaccinated pregnant woman. I forgot the country, but she was infected with the flu, influenza, and COVID at the same time. And now it's as recently as an hour ago, found out that it's popped up here in the United States. The same precautions that we took to protect ourselves from COVID work to protect us from the flu, and the flu is really picking up steam this year after being virtually non-existent because of all of our NPIs or non-pharmacological interventions, or the things we did to protect ourselves last year from COVID. COVID protected us from the flu, and now we're starting to see incidences of Flurona.
Wait till you see the numbers, Eric.
I wonder why they never call it COVIDenza.
Covenza. I think I called it
Covenza. Yeah, Covenza.
I think way back when. But yeah.
That sounds like a car from the 70s.
It'd be right up there next to the Nova. Do you remember the Nova? The Chevy
that
Nova?
didn't work. That did not work in Spanish-speaking companies because Nova in Spanish means does not go.
Yeah, in Spanish-speaking countries, and also here in the U.S., Nova means does not work or does not move or does not go. And so it was a terrible name for, apparently, in the 70s, they were not doing multi-ethnic testing of products.
And marketing, yeah.
Clearly. Hello, everybody. Hello, Sharky. And then hello, Maria. Thank you. So it's so nice to have all you guys here. And again, we love answering your questions. So please ask questions as you have them. So Eric, this Flurona, where is this going? What can this do?
So it was a quick skim. I saw it's here in the States it was in North Carolina is where I saw a case. The bottom line is we're about to be approaching the peak of flu season. We have surges taking place. We need to do everything we can to protect ourselves. And as this develops, because it's apparently picking up steam, because I'm seeing more and more articles about it, we'll keep you posted.
Okay, and I'm actually just trying to pull up the article right now. My computer's just not been doing well right now. I am going to try to pull that up because I think it is really interesting. While I'm doing that, what is happening in Cameroon?
What's happening where?
In Cameroon.
Oh, Cameroon. What is it? Is it called? It's another variant, folks. It's a B165 or 4 something. Apparently, it's another variant that emerged in Cameroon from one person that traveled there, where the vaccination rate is 2.4%. It's grown. I guess they went back to southern France, and now it's created a cluster of 12 people that are in isolation that have that same variant. It's a translocation or 36 more mutations, and 47 translocations or differences or mutations for all intents and purposes of the Omicron. They're thinking that it's potentially more infectious than Omicron and also has the potential to evade our natural and vaccine defenses, but more to come. The important thing about that is that this is the way all of them start. And if we can just pay attention when it's a spark and protect ourselves, we can prevent the raising fires of surges.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Cameroon and then the vaccination rate. Do you want to kind of explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, the vaccination rate. So when Omicron was first described in southern Africa, in places like Botswana, the vaccination rate is 0.7%. Here in Cameroon, the vaccination rate is 2.4%. I want people to compare and contrast that to what we hear locally. Here in the States, we're hearing 40, 50, 70, 80% of one vaccine. There's vaccine equity is a problem, and until we start to address this whole pandemic globally, if we look at the Earth, the planet on which we live, as we're part of one big living, breathing organism, and realize that we're connected, and make sure to ensure that we all get vaccinated. That's the only way that we're going to get out of this. If we have equitable access to vaccines and equitable education and practices across the globe in order for us to rid ourselves of this disease called COVID.
Absolutely. And here is one of the stories, something that you sent me, Eric, here just to kind of go through real quickly. So B164 0.2 discovered in a traveler returning from Cameroon, a high number of mutations. Just when we thought we were looking up at least a little, because Omicron, while being more contagious, may take a milder course. A new variant has emerged. We don't know how dangerous it is. We are the most brilliant listeners of our show just told us it's called IHU. This new variant is detected in Marseille, south of France, has a large number of mutations. As Eric was just saying, some of the mutations it has is the N501Y, and then the EEC, or what I refer to as the ERIC mutation, the E484K. Those we know are associated with an increase in infectiousness as well. And also the EEC mutation, the E484K, as you can see here, possibly reduces the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines. Let's see if there's anything else here. I think nothing here. I think that the thing that's really the most important thing was what Eric was just saying. A very low vaccination rates generally favor the emergence of new coronavirus mutations. Cameroon only has 2.4% of the population that's completely vaccinated. And as long as the vaccine campaign isn't advanced globally, new variants will continue to develop. Sometimes they're harmless, sometimes they're more dangerous, and it remains to see how harmful this variant will be. So there we go, Eric. Something that we've been talking about forever on this show, as longtime listeners can attest to. We've been talking about vaccine equity, and we also predicted a significant emergence of continued variants. Until we have vaccine equity, we will continue to see this. So anything else, Eric? Do you have anything else to say on this? Eric?
I'm here. Hello.
Yeah, I was just saying, do you have anything else?
Not on that one just yet. I'm about to get settled. Vaccine equity, I think I touched on that. My inner Mark Allen has emerged.
I know. I couldn't believe it. Eric and I were on the radio this morning, and we shocked each other. I took on the Eric role, and Eric took on the Mark Allen role. By the Eric role, so Eric talked about vaccine equity, and I told back, and Eric, because Eric usually tells really dumb jokes on WBOK, so I just told a dumb joke back. So this way we were able to exchange.
Don't be fooled, folks. Mark Allen always tells dumb jokes. That was a dumb joke about dumb jokes.
I wanted to get meta on you.
Yeah.
Eric, is there any other COVID news that we need to go over? Oh, here's the Flurona. Here, hang on a second. Let's cover this. I think this is important to cover as well. And I also do want to kind of mention that when I was in Sierra Leone, I saw a number of times a co-infection of Ebola virus with HIV virus. So as Eric said, there's nothing stating that you can't have two viruses simultaneously. Of course, our bodies are filled with viruses at all times. And so to have the combination of influenza and coronavirus is not a surprise. In Israel, 31-year-old pregnant woman has contracted COVID-19 and the seasonal influenza virus at the same time. The first Flurona case, the pregnant woman whose local paper, Hamodia, reported was not vaccinated against COVID or flu and was only mildly ill, thank goodness. So here you go. This is stoked fears of a twindemic. I think what we're going to see, if we do see anything like that, is that we're going to probably see something like that, mostly in the unvaccinated communities.
Unvaccinated.
Yeah, both in coronavirus unvaccinated and influenza vaccinated. And
well, given the contagiousness of Omicron here, in the middle of a surge, I think anything's possible.
Right, absolutely. Real quickly, hey Sharky, let's talk. I do want to talk about this. Sharky says, "Did you talk about Florida Surgeon General's crazy comments?" Sharky, can you send me a quick article on that? I know that you sent me a tweet that I looked at really quickly today, but if you could just send me a link, just drop a link there, and I'll pull that link up and we can talk about it. Because did you see this Surgeon General and his wanting to move away from kind of standard NPI tactics and verbiage regarding the virus? So it says they don't mutate together, though do they? No, they completely mutate separate from one another. But it'll be very interesting to see if there is some in Sierra Leone. What it appeared to me, and this was like I probably saw maybe anywhere between 10 to a dozen people who were living with HIV who also had Ebola. It seemed as though and this is complete speculation on my part, but it seemed as though the HIV virus kept a damper, or their Ebola symptoms were far less significant or far less notable. And in fact, there was a lot of folks that were in the hospital for being sick and they just got swabbed just because they were just swabbed for like screening, like we screen for COVID now. You know, the guy who comes in with a broken arm then finds out he's got COVID, right? Well,
that's why the hospitals are being overrun right now.
Right. And so what we were doing in Sierra Leone and Freetown is that we were just screening people for Ebola when they came to the hospital. And so somebody who had HIV who came in because they were sick also had Ebola. They had to be isolated, of course. But then the Ebola course that they had was very, very mild. And the only way that and there was, 2 other infectious disease doctors that were there, one from Spain and one from the UK, and we were helping to manage the patients. The only thing that we could think about was that the HIV virus was having some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like it was diffusing the intensity of the Ebola element of it. So all of this to say is I don't know what's going to happen with it, what happens with people who have both influenza and coronavirus. I do suspect that we will see some interesting patterns emerge. I do suspect that those people who are most at risk for coronavirus are also those that are most at risk for influenza. So that'll be something that we'll be looking for as well.
Well said. Well said. Well said. Almost a protective or dampening effect.
Right, dampening effect. That's exactly right. Sharky, I'm sorry. I forgot that I can't actually pull something off of here. This is our second time that we did a show in like 9 months. Can you actually text me that link? I'm sorry, Sharky. Yes. Oh yeah, look at this. This is great. The Florida Surgeon General is a member of Americans Frontline Doctors. Well, that makes sense.
Makes sense now.
Yeah, Sharky, if you text it to me, I'll definitely look it up. All right, if there's nothing else, and if you guys have questions, again, thank you guys so much for being here. If you tuned in, you are listening to 102.3 WHIV. We are live on Facebook, on multiple channels and platforms as well as we are live on our NoiseFilter YouTube page as well. So check us out there. We have a number of animations since we last left you guys. We've released, how many? We've released 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, I can't remember. We've done so many cartoons, animations.
Yeah. We certainly, and we have a new one coming out from Tulane looking at clinical trials in which Doc Griggs raps. It's amazing. It also stars Miss Irma Thomas, so tune in for that one.
She's amazing.
Listen to Eric rapping as well as.
Why are you keep saying it that way? Yeah.
And he didn't get shy rapping in front of her or anything, man. I can't believe it.
Like, I was in. I had to really.
You just stepped up and you just totally knocked it out.
Thanks. Yeah, that was quite an experience. I'll say that.
You're talking about the Irma Thomas.
Yeah.
She's great, isn't she?
She's amazing.
Yeah, Irma Thomas will put you in your place. Trust me, I know, because she put me in my place multiple times. All right, well, here we go. Let's start looking at some data here. I figured we would talk about some good news. All right, so some good news here. Vaccines are working, and they're just not working okay. They're working incredibly well. What this graph is showing is hospitalizations of, you can see from 12/5 to 12/19. This is in New York, so this is definitively Omicron. And you can see that the unvaccinated are hospitalized at a much greater rate than those that are, the unvaccinated are hospitalized at greater rates than the vaccinated. So vaccines are doing their primary job, keeping people out of the hospital. We can easily see that in many graphs. But here you see a distinction hospitalizations amongst vaccinated compared to unvaccinated. So this is, I think, an important point, and I think this is a point that I think we need to kind of drive home over and over again. In that, remember, the vaccines are kind of like seatbelts, and when people say to you, "Well, I don't see any reason for the vaccine because you can still get COVID." Okay, it's like telling them that you don't need a seatbelt. Okay, a seatbelt does not prevent a car accident. A seatbelt prevents extent of injuries. And that's exactly what the vaccine does. It's not going to prevent you from getting COVID. What it'll do is prevent the extent of injuries that come as a result of COVID. Thoughts, Eric?
Yeah. So again, I mean, I think that analogy is so on point. At this point, it's just interesting at this point, in the middle of what our fifth surge, with a virus that's this contagious, of course, we'll get to in the slides, that we're still having to convince people to get vaccinated. I mean, all the numbers are there. People say they need to do research. We have it. Like, I don't know what else. I don't know how else to say it other than shut up and take the shot. You know?
It's such a good point. It's such a good point. We do have it. All right. Thank you, Sharky. Here is Sharky, who Florida Surgeon General blasts testing psychology around COVID-19. So you ready for this, Eric? All right. So listen to this. Florida's. Oh no.
Oh, paywall. Paywall. Paywall.
No. Oh, here's the X. Here we go. All right, there we go. Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo. I think we need to say that name as much as possible, right? Joseph Ladapo said on Monday, it's time to unwind the testing psychology many Americans have developed throughout the pandemic as COVID-19 surges in his state. We are going to be working to unwind the sort of testing psychology that our federal leadership has managed to, unfortunately, get most of the country in the last 2 years. So basically just saying, stop testing, right? Stop testing. Why do they want to stop testing? It's because Florida is in a major surge right now, and they probably are just trying to save face because obviously they've not done a very good job protecting against COVID.
Which is on brand for the pandemic, right?
Totally. Not only on brand for the pandemic, but also for Florida, which is where I thought you were going. Yes, he added that people were planning and living their lives around testing, but said it was really time for people to be living, to make the decisions they want regarding vacation, to enjoy the fact that many people have natural immunity. This guy is completely was rocking. Wow. Paudo's comments came as COVID-19 cases are surging in Florida. The Department of Health reported a test positivity rate of 26.5%, which means they're not testing enough. Right. You know, yes. DeSantis said Ladapo would be releasing new testing guidance focused on testing if you have a reason. Oh my goodness, what they're going to say. So of course, Dr. Ashish Jha, Dean of Brown School of Public Health, said in a tweet that the Surgeon General's comments were completely backwards. Florida Surgeon General says we need to stop testing and get back to our lives. In fact, with ubiquitous testing, we can keep infections low and safely get back to our lives. 100% agree. So thank you for sharing that.
Wow.
You know what that reminded me of too, Eric, was the governor of Texas is I forget his name off the top of my head. I'm usually pretty good at remembering his name. He asked, did you hear at the beginning of the week, this is the guy who, again, eschewed vaccine mandates and masking and all that. And then all of a sudden now he's in trouble because they don't have enough resources. Governor Albert, thank you. Governor Abbott is now asking the federal government for help, of course, with monoclonal antibodies and what have you. So just another embarrassing and unfortunate reality. So anyway, getting back to our slide deck for the day today. This is a really interesting graph, sticking on vaccines. So in this graph here, this is the projected number of deaths that we would have had, upwards to I think about 1 million or so that the vaccine saved. So in red is if we did not have the vaccine. So you can see graphically how many people would have died had there not been the vaccine. And here in green is the actual people who've been vaccinated. So you can see here, here they say that the Commonwealth Fund recently published a brief in which they analyzed the extent to which the vaccine program in the United States averted deaths and hospitalizations. In the absence of a vaccine program, there would have been approximately 1.1 million additional COVID-19 deaths and more than 10.3 million additional COVID hospitalizations by November of 2021.
Wow.
What do you think about that, Eric?
I mean, it's just amazing.
It's insane, isn't it?
That's I mean, wow. That's
It's
additional deaths. That's additional to the 800,000.
that is additional to the 800,000. Absolutely right.
Wow.
It's incredible, right? It's incredible. All right, let's move on. All right, what do we have here? All right, more and more evidence is showing that Omicron is less severe, which is great. Recent preprint found that risk for ED hospitalizations, ICU admission, mechanical ventilators were less than half of Omicron infections compared to Delta. Now, this is very nuanced, and we're going to get into some of this now. In children under 5, the overall risk of ED visits and hospitalizations were 3.89%. So that's Omicron versus Delta 0.96. So one of the things that we need to recognize is that Omicron doesn't infect the lungs as efficiently. And one of the things that I think we forgot to mention was the study out of Hong Kong, and I'll just review it really quickly. The study out of Hong Kong, the study out of Hong Kong essentially showed this, and it's really important. What these researchers have is a lab that they're to test pandemic-prone viruses on different tissues of the body. And what they found was that in the bronchial tissue, so right here, kind of right where the trachea goes down and it splits, it's something called the carina. And the first tissue is called bronchial tissue. And then when they look deep into the lungs, they compared the growth that happens in bronchial tissue versus Delta. And it grew at 70 times the rate as Delta. In other words, in bronchial tissue, one of the reasons why it's so infectious is that it's still very much on the, it can easily be expelled with a cough or a sneeze or somebody who's talking. But when they looked at tissue that was deep in the lung, what they found was that it had very, very delayed growth. In fact, it was like 8 times less growth than Delta. And so, but what we are seeing though, and we have to be very clear about this, we are seeing that hospitalizations are happening, okay, and there is some severity of disease. And in fact, if you are sick enough to get into the hospital with Omicron, your risk of severity of illness is the same as it was for Delta. So there is some severity that's associated with Omicron. Now, again, one of the things that we saw initially was hospitalizations and ICUs going down, but we're going to see some newer data that's showing that there's an uptick now. See, Omicron didn't fully escape our vaccines or immune systems. Our boosters are 50 to 88% efficacious against Omicron. So this is why it's important for people to really make sure that they get boosted. The best thing that you can do to protect yourself in this case is to have a booster against the Omicron variant. Oh, Eric, you didn't tell me that I wasn't on the business slide.
Talking. I didn't know you weren't. There's no grab. I just thought you wanted to wax philosophical.
Got it. No. Here I was talking about hospitalizations going down, ICU beds are going down, ventilators are going down. We're going to see that that's actually starting to go up again. Okay, so.
Can I just? I want to speak to real quick to what you were discussing.
Please.
So everything that you said, if I were a virus, it makes all the sense in the world. Rather than get into the lungs where you make the host or you make people sick and pull them out of the population and put them in a hospital or you kill them, I'm going to occupy the upper airways and the bronchioles closer to the mouth and throat where people can talk and project. And when I get in, I'm going to make it so that I replicate so many times. There are going to be even more soldiers out with the parachutes trying to get into other folks. And I'm not going to make them as sick so I can hang around. As you and I, you really started telling us at the very beginning of this, viruses over time tend to get more infectious and less virulent. Virulent being lethal, infectious meaning contagious. And that's exactly what Omicron is showing that it's done. We haven't gotten. I don't know if you have graphs to show it, but Omicron is it's minimally 3 times as contagious or infectious as Delta, which was 11 times more infectious than Alpha. I mean, it's getting increasingly more infectious. We're just the problem with that, even though for the vaccinated and boosted, it seems to be a milder course of disease, it still overburdens the healthcare system for the exact reason that you mentioned earlier. You go to the hospital with a broken leg, and because they're testing everyone for potential exposure, you're finding that a lot of people are having COVID. And if it's that infectious, not only are the patients infected, the staff is becoming infected. So you're decreasing your resources and increasing your load, which decreases resources for other things like heart attacks, real accidents, and other emergencies. So it's still a serious situation, even though it doesn't get into the lungs and make you as sick if you're vaccinated. And that was the last point I wanted to bring up, is that, everyone keeps talking, oh, it's mild, it's mild. No, this is still COVID, whether you're vaccinated or not. This is still the term when it first broke is if you look in the studies, they're saying that it's no less severe than Delta in the unvaccinated, meaning that it's just as dangerous if you're not vaccinated. This is still a disease.
Right.
Just because the snake is one might be 10 times as poisonous as another doesn't mean that the other one isn't a poisonous snake.
It was poisonous, Eric. It was a poisonous snake.
Yeah, it was a poisonous snake.
It was a poisonous snake sitting at my feet. Okay, when I had malaria.
No, it was not a poison. He had a dream that he and a snake were found the same outdoor lavatory, and the snake.
I was put in the sick hut and left for this guy's not going to survive malaria. All right, so that's a whole other story. Hello, Sean. It's nice to see you. All right, so here's some final bit of just overall good news. The FDA just announced authorization of 2 more antigen tests, which will result in millions and millions of tests coming next month. Also, at-home rapid tests will finally be reimbursed by insurance. It should just be given out, if you ask me. Pfizer is ramping up production for antivirals. I mean, the next time that we talk, I'm going to do a nice kind of review of the Pfizer antiviral that's coming and show you some really neat graphs that can go with it. Finally, a dream coronavirus vaccine is in clinical trials, and if it's successful, it would prevent severe disease from future coronaviruses. And lastly, kids under 5 will get vaccinated by summer. So those are kind of a roundup of kind of good news of things that are happening with respect to vaccines. Okay, but there's confusion about reliability in the wake of Omicron when it comes to antigen tests. So there's been mixed messages, rapid testing stories in the news, lighting up Twitter. In the end, it's still really, really important to have these rapid tests. But here you can see a nice breakdown of kind of what happened in November 27. You had companies like Abbott and Quidel evaluated their antigen tests, said Omicron did not impact their rapid tests. The UK corroborated this on December 17th. But at the end of December, the CDC updated its, the CDC comes in again. The CDC updated its isolation guidance and excluded testing parameters because they didn't work. And then the FDA on December 28th released a broad statement saying early data suggests antigen tests do detect Omicron, but may have reduced sensitivity. So we're going to go into some real world performance here in a moment. So we'll show you what that is. But Eric, what is your general talking point about the reliability of antigen tests?
So my general reliability, first of all, the purpose of the rapid test and the antigen test, typically they test for contagiousness. If your viral load is high enough that you have symptoms, first of all, you will test positive and you can transmit to other people. The issue on the front end was that, and you heard us say it for months, is that it was a sensitivity thing. Were they sensitive enough to pick up small amounts of virus? And the answer is no. And you're not actually testing for virus, you're looking for the spikes that are on the outside of the virus. If you're in a system where you have access to affordable, and you remember that.
Look at this tweet down. Look at this comment.
Exactly. you remember that with the $5 and all that stuff, and they were supposed to do and all that stuff?
Michael Mena from Harvard developed, along with another person, they developed these sputum tests where you would they were like $1 a test. You know, you could buy a test and you just drop a little bit of sputum on a piece of paper every morning to see. And his theory was we could get out of this if everybody first of all, if these tests were made massively affordable and available, widely, freely distributed, you would be able to test and you would be able to determine whether or not you get COVID and then isolate yourself.
Which is a theory behind which the NBA bubble, that's why it was so successful.
Right. Yes. Such a good.
There were rapid tests. There were frequently testing. Once your viral load had reached the tipping point to signal that you were positive, you were pulled out of the general community, you isolated. And then, if I'm not mistaken, they tested out. They kept testing to see when the viral load. So that's the thing. That's what. So the issue with the rapid test, and on the front end, oftentimes they're not sensitive enough to pick up a small viral load. Like, that's why if you have symptoms and you take a rapid test, usually your viral load's really high because you're showing symptoms, right? But they are specific, and I've been telling over 60 people that. Since Christmas Eve, if your rapid test says positive, you're positive. It's definitely the accuracy on specificity, meaning specifically, if it picks up COVID, it says it's upwards of 93%. What they're discussing when they come to guidance about quarantining, which that's a whole nother story, is testing out of quarantine, right?
Isolation.
Out of isolation. If you test negative on the back end, understand that it's a true negative. That means there's not enough virus to register in your body.
I have a graph to show exactly what you're talking about.
And most importantly, that these tests were created. They're more geared towards contagiousness. You are no longer it's safe for you to be out in public. And if you do have a small viral load, you're not contagious anymore. And based on that, that's how we came up with the quarantine dates and isolation. Remember, it was 14. Then the data showed you can go to 10, and it was a scientific process.
And then the data showed that you can go to 5.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was no. Yeah. The science of that was money.
So yes, Biden is supposed to be sending out 500 million tests starting soon. After Jen Psaki, his press secretary, said they wouldn't do it, then they said they would. I am not going to hold my breath for that. But of course, because Katie is in the UK, she says that there is a testing culture in the UK where many of us are testing a couple times a week. Because you know why? Because the UK gives it to them for free. Lateral flow tests it's just another way of saying antigen test. So let me get to that graph that I was talking about, Eric, because I wanted you to kind of explain it. But just real quick before we get to it, we don't know how the rapid tests work in the real world. I think that antigen tests are not perfect, but they're still a valuable tool because what they want, just like what Eric says, am I infectious, therefore do I need to isolate? So what do these tests pick up? And so what Eric was just talking about right now is this. So this is your exposure. So here is day 0. So here's day 0, here's your day of exposure. And about 1 day you start, or 2 days, you start kicking off a viral load that starts replicating, okay? And I don't think that this is Omicron, to be honest with you. I think that this may be just general coronavirus.
Just general,
yeah. And so you could see that you peak out at about day 4 or day 5. And so one of the reasons why we said 14 days previously is that a majority, about 99% of people had cleared their virus by day 14. You can see it's not 100%. Now, if you look at why PCR testing is better, is that PCR testing picks up, and this is that threshold that Eric was talking about. So the PCR can pick up less virus for longer. And that's why
it's more sensitive. It's more sensitive.
Right.
Yeah.
And whereas the lateral flow, or what's also known as antigen testing, needs more virus, and also it only picks it up for a shorter period of time. So are the antigen tests perfect? No, they're not. They're not perfect at all. But in a public health crisis where we need as much help as possible to reduce the level of transmission, yeah, they're good enough for right now. You know, I wouldn't have last year. I would not, given where we are now, and I'll show that data in a second because it's ugly. Like we had just in one day, we had record number of cases broad, globally, nationally, and statewide. So complete trifecta. I think that these are good enough for right now, and I think that they should continue to be used. So any last comments here, Eric? Or
Well, I think they're more than good enough. I hope they do. I hope something's done to make them more available. Again, folks, we you know, Mark Allen, if you can remember before the show stopped, when we were fighting the good fight to get people vaccinated, we would emphasize that vaccines and testing go together. You have to keep surveillance of what's out there to know if it's effective, and it's important with an asymptomatic disease which is just as contagious if it's asymptomatic, that you test and you do what they're doing in the UK. You create a culture where people understand that they go hand in hand. That makes
absolutely.
sense? Yeah.
Absolutely. And lastly, one way to increase the sensitivity of these tests, of these antigen tests, is to also swab the pharynx. So you're going to start seeing a lot more people encouraging a throat swab. So you could see here in this slide here, they're basically showing get the back of your throat and then the sides of your tonsils. And then, of course, you do your one nostril, and you swirl, and you do the same with another.
Now,
it's the same swab that you want to do.
Now, if you buy the home test, they don't have you swab in the back of your throat.
Right, I know, but I think one thing is that people are going to encourage this now.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a lot of recommendations for throat swabbing as well. Yeah. Okay, so as we kind of move into epi, before we do, just let us know that we've had worldwide cases with 1 million confirmed cases per day. So we are seeing some really increases that have been crazy. We'll get to the real epi data in a second. The U.S. has a 200 increase in the past 14 days with about 400,000 cases a day, which is just incredible. Now, we talked about before that hospitalizations were, where are we with hospitalizations? You can see that this was the Delta spike right here, and we are starting to see that hospitalizations are going up. So, and the reason is, and again, let's just be very clear that what this is math. If you infect more and more and more people with coronavirus, eventually, which we've seen, and I'm going to show you these incredible peaks in a moment, you're going to eventually, just because math is math, if you throw a wider net, you're gonna bring in more people who are going to be hospitalized.
But and along with that, I have to insert that there is the misconception that there's in our country there's one hospital bed for every person, and it's nowhere near that.
Yeah, absolutely. No question about that. One thing that I do want to be very clear and something that we have that I've talked about because we saw the early data out of South Africa is that pediatric hospitalizations. So kids continue to increase in terms of hospitalizations, largely because they may be unvaccinated, but you can see where Delta is here, and here you can see what Omicron is doing. So there's a huge uptick in cases with Omicron, as you can see in this dotted line here. But here you can see the hospitalizations have gone up significantly. Again, we don't know what that is due to. It's likely to be a combination of unvaccinated as well as as well as probably no immunity or very low immunity. And also, it could be that this virus maybe replicates or is a bit more efficacious or efficient in transmission in children, but we don't know yet. Eric, any thoughts?
Yeah, quick stat. The ratio or the number of hospital beds per 1,000 people here in the United States is 2.5. 2.5 beds per 1,000 people here in the United States. Wow. So you can easily see how if you have a large population, roughly 75 million people that are unvaccinated and vulnerable to a disease that's equally, and at its worst, equally as severe as Delta, you can see how that can become overwhelming and the math of it can get it overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And apparently Antarctica now has COVID. It's kind of like influenza where you couldn't hide from influenza before. Before we get into just one last slide before we get into the epi, what is the effect that this is having? We're seeing massive disruptions of the highly transmissible variant, food supply, travel, essential services, healthcare. Eric talked about healthcare. Remember, 25% of healthcare workers are getting sick from Omicron as well. The number of healthcare workers are out sick with COVID continues to increase. And here's a graph from London displaying the number of staff absent due to COVID in orange compared to other reasons in blue. And you can see there's been an increase in COVID infections. Again, these are in healthcare workers. Here's a tweet. Today I had to tell 2 patients with metastatic colorectal cancer I have to postpone their liver resections next week. One broke down and cried into her arms. I felt like I failed them. Please get vaccinated, wear a mask, stay out of the hospital. This is what happens when people are not vaccinating. Baltimore County is out of EMS transport units. Authority of Battalion Chief 22. All priority 3 patients can be transported by an engine or a suppression unit. In other words, there's massive disruptions that are happening because of, unfortunately, the number of cases that we are seeing.
Well, I want to address that first one real quick. What's happening, folks, is the surgery suites are shutting down due to lack of staffing and also due to the system just because of the lack of staffing and the increasing number of COVID patients. They don't have the resources to do. We're back at this should feel eerily like 2020.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things I always say, what was the one thing that scared me was COVID 2022.
And here we are.
All right. I won't be unbearable and say, hear me today, quote me tomorrow, but hear me today.
You know what? I was really just sitting there like, man, I'm glad he didn't say it. There you did it.
All right. So look where we are. We're almost 3 million cases, 5.5 or almost 5.5 million deaths. New cases. Last night, over the past 24 hours, 2,270,343 cases. Can you believe that? It's unbelievable the amount of deaths that are decoupled from that. So this is the most I've ever seen. All right, Eric, you ready for something?
Yeah,
you ready for this? You ready for this? Pow!
Wow! Wow!
Can you believe that? Wow! Have you ever seen anything like this? I know every time we're like, oh, look how. Remember when we were here, we're like, oh, that's really steep, or that's really steep. This is insane.
And people ask why we're tired. Like it's just when you think you've seen it all.
It's
just when you think you've seen it all, COVID says, here, hold my beer.
Yeah. Look, it just blows away all the. Hold on, Eric. Remember here, flatten the curve.
Yeah.
So this is global. This is global, folks. This is global, right? 156% change. Deaths, fortunately, going down. So that's the good news. But I want you guys to look at this, and then we're going to look at nationwide. Then we're going to look at Louisiana-wide, right? So here you can see, fortunately, deaths are going down. This is a good thing. Here you can see we had a massive peak. This was the alpha peak globally. Unfortunately, that is going down. All right, who's driving? Who's driving this epidemic right now? It's not going to shock you that the U.S. is driving this epidemic. Look at this peak in cases, followed by Europe. Look at this next graph, Eric. Look at this. This is global hotspots. Look at that map. Look, could they have gotten a darker red, burgundy, or whatever, however, to express this?
So I have an interesting question about that, though. So do you think it's due? I mean, it looks like it's the higher resourced countries that are able to travel.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. It is the highest resourced countries. You're 100% correct.
And that because they're able to travel interstate, intercountry, within their continent. Like, I mean, it's a lot. That's a lot.
Yep. You see Northern Europe here, Scandinavia. You got Central Europe here. Of course, Chile, Australia, and New Zealand, and then just Botswana in the middle of everything.
The vaccination rate is 0.7
in Botswana. There you go. I'm surprised it's not in more places. I think that this, to me, it's insane to look at what's driving this pandemic right now. Is the U.S. and is Europe. So just something for us to think about. Here, Elizabeth asked, with the at-home test, do you think the case numbers actually double? What I think, and I haven't heard this yet, I think that there is a fudge factor that they figure with every positive PCR, maybe there's like 7 positive antigens or something. So I don't know what that number is. I've been looking for articles to explain that. And as soon as I hear that, Elizabeth, I'll report back. But I think that there's some that they are incorporating the antigen testing numbers into it because there's just not enough PCRs to go around, quite frankly. Here is the US. Let me fix the focus here. Eric, something that we talked about a lot, we're approaching 59 million cases. We last left at about 700,000 deaths, and we're at 853,268. Number of new cases, 508,857. And again, there's a decoupling with deaths, which is really, really great news. But look, hold on. Remember what we always talked about? Were we going to surpass the American Civil War, which was the greatest number of deaths of Americans in 4 years? And we have just blown past it. Now over 100,000. We know this number is even.
I think it'll be 1 million by June.
Yeah, it's far, far more than that. Look at the U.S., dude. Look at that. Look at that spike. It's just insane. Now we are seeing testing going up as well. Hospitalizations are going up, and deaths are more or less kind of are blunting. Of course, in the hospitals. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't know is that the monoclonal antibodies, there's 3 of them on the market. Only one is effective for Omicron. 2 of them aren't. So there's a shortage
and they're scared. They're scarce. There's scarcity of that one right now.
Absolutely. And so this spike, this peak that we're seeing is obviously it's unprecedented. We've never seen it. Here we were trying to flatten the curve, and we were shocked with the number of cases. I remember we went up to here, and I was shocked, and then here, right? Then here, and then holy, I was gonna swear, but holy smokes, 204%, 200. Up, obviously, legalizations are going up, and thankfully, deaths continue to go down. All right, where are the hot spots in the country? So New York is having a major uptick in cases, but you can see it's kind of, to me, it looks maybe a little bit heavier on the eastern part of the country, I guess. I don't know. It looks kind of sporadic and all over the place.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I know for a fact in the Northeast and in the Midwest, they're still dealing with Delta.
Yes, yeah, some parts. I think New York is dealing with Omicron, but yes.
Rhode Island and in Philadelphia and in Michigan, it's Delta.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, and it could be that, that it'll be really interesting to see how Omicron and Delta kind of fight with each other in terms of being able to determine, what foothold or what niche the virus is going to take. Now, in some parts where we are seeing increases in hospitalizations, that could be Delta, right? I mean, we don't know. I mean, it's just we don't test enough. We don't have enough molecular testing. We do here in the state of Louisiana. As I've told this story many, many times because my wife encouraged me to start a genetics lab here in Louisiana, which I did with the amazing Dr. Trivia Frazier. And now that lab is up and running and we have an incredible time. We have great access to data. And in New Orleans or in Louisiana, it is almost 100% Omicron. Okay, as we are moving forward, we are quickly running out of time. Looking at Louisiana, rapidly approaching 8,800,000 deaths. Cases with 15,027 deaths. Last night we added 10,403 cases. And look at the epi curve. Look at that. This is the third curve that I've shown you, Eric, that has broken a record. We have this the global, we have the U.S., and now we have the state. We are seeing increases in testing. Look at the cases went up 716% over 14 days, which is incredible. Like I was shocked when we had this spike. I was like, there's no way we're going to go over what we saw here with Delta. Like you said, hold my beer. Boom. Look at that. Incredible. And that's largely due to the fact that the state is only 50% fully vaccinated, which of course is tragic. Where are these cases happening? Really, New Orleans is the hotspot for the state. I think there's it's Shreveport. But here, Orleans Parish, as you can see here, is making up the bulk of cases.
Yeah,
I don't have a reason for that. I mean,
I have a small speculation. Over it's a holiday for everyone, but here in New Orleans, we are a destination. We're a port. We're a major port. And we're a destination. We have cruise ships coming into dock. We had the New Orleans Bowl. We've had Sugar Bowl. We've got the whole nine. So there's a litany of reasons why people could have come from they come from all over and they bring their bugs and they leave and they drop them here with something this contagious. Mark Allen, before we lose time, I want you to speak to real quick on the contagiousness of this variant as it relates to other diseases. But I finished. But I want you to get a real
right. Real quickly, I'll do that. Our test positivity rate in the state is 28%, and our infection rate is 1.7. And then here in Orleans Parish, our test positivity is 33.1%, which is, I think, the most it's ever been. But even though we've been even though we're very vaccinated, 76.6. So what do we have? I've got a minute. So what Eric wants me to talk about real quick, and I do see the rest of your comments, and thank you guys so much, is that as Eric kind of alluded this earlier, and you'll hear him talk about how the virus received its instructions and did what it was supposed to do. As viruses become more virulent, as they become more infectious or contagious, they tend to lose severity of illness, which is referred to as virulence. Oftentimes, if a virus becomes more virulent, it also loses its ability to become contagious. We've not seen that with the Alpha variant and with the Delta variant and Lambda and Mu. They became both infectious and contagious, and they also became more severe disease. They produced more severe disease, such as they were more virulent. Now, what we're seeing with Omicron, for the first time, fingers crossed, toes crossed, all that, it is becoming more infectious, but hopefully with it, like Eric said, the virus did its homework and recognizes that as viruses become more infectious, they don't want to kill their host. They want to spread they want to spread their DNA, their RNA all over the place. So in doing so, they should not kill their host. And I think with Omicron, Eric, I got 5 seconds. I think with Omicron, we are seeing less virulence. Hopefully the variant after that will prove that to be the case. We got to wrap up, Eric.
Yep. Health is human right. See y'all next week.
See y'all next week.
Load up your questions. We'll be back.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week.
Get tested. Shut up. Take the shot.